Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Kennedy, and I am Next Time's representative for business development here in South Korea and also in Japan. First of all, as you could probably tell, I am not from India. I am not Japanese, and I'm not Korean. I'm from the United States, but Next Time is an international organization, and it's great to work with all of you. I have over 3 decades, actually, of work experience here in Asia. I am based in Japan permanently, and I often visit South Korea. I collaborate with all sorts of businesses that are seeking to expand their operations to invest profitably into India. I welcome meeting any of you with the chance to do so in Seoul or other parts of Korea. I actually am based in the southern island of Japan called Kyushu, which is technically closer to you than I am to Tokyo. So there is no excuse not to meet each other. I'm looking forward to it. It is my pleasure first to introduce a couple of my co-speakers today. In a few minutes, we'll be joined by Mr. Nishikant Singh of the Embassy of India in South Korea, and also Mr. Anil Sinha is standing by, and it is my pleasure to thank both of them for taking time out of their busy schedule to meet us today and speak with us. Just a brief introduction before he gets here. Mr. Nishikant Singh, who's the Deputy Chief of Mission, or DCM, of the Embassy of India in Seoul. He is our esteemed speaker at this event and is a member of the Indian Foreign Service. He currently holds the position of Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of India in Seoul, and his career trajectory includes a significant role, such as serving at the Embassy of India in Beijing, being a first secretary counselor for EOI Manila in Philippines, and contributing to various divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs, where he began his service in August of 2010. We are glad to have him with us today. Also, in just a second, we'll be hearing first from Mr. Anil Sinha, who is the chairman of the Indian Chamber of Commerce of Korea. Mr. Sinha is the chief operating officer at Tata Daewoo Commercial Vehicles in Gunsan, South Korea. And before joining Tata Motors, he worked as the plant head for the New Holland Fiat India Limited firm for over 15 years. Mr. Sinha actually has 35 years of experience working at Mitsubishi Motors in Japan, while working at VE Commercial Vehicles Limited and in many other firms in the automotive sector. He has extensive know-how of working in a multicultural and multi-language work environment, not only in South Korea, where he's based now, but also in North America, Europe, and Latin America. Mr. Sinha is also a certified Six Sigma champion from ASQ, and he's on the board of directors for Fiat India Automotive Private Limited. Also, just before I pass it over to Mr. Sinha, I wanted to briefly do some housekeeping. We will be sending out a copy of this presentation after the seminar, and we also have you all put on listen mode, which means if you have any questions, simply use the Q&A function or chat functions to put your questions there, and depending upon time, we will try to address them at the end of the presentation. If we run out of time, we will definitely follow up with a written response for you. Also, as I mentioned before, I'm looking forward to a chance to meeting you in the future. So now I will pass it over to my colleague, Mr. Anil Sinha of the Indian Chamber of Commerce.
Good afternoon, everyone. Annyeong Hasmika. And on behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea, ICCK, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the dignitaries and speakers present here. Mr. Nishikant Singh, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of India to Republic of Korea, Mr. Mark Kennedy, and our Korean and foreign companies present in this webinar. I am Anil Sinha, Chairman of Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea. I have stayed in Korea for over 4 years by now. I am currently Chief Operating Officer and Vice President for Tata Daewoo Commercial Vehicle, a 100% subsidiary of Tata Motors, one of the largest group of companies in India. About ICCK, it is almost 13 years young, and ICCK vision is to play a vital and valuable role in the economic development and trade promotion between two countries, Korea and India. ICCK has a steadily growing membership base of Korean and Indian companies. We help to connect Korean and Indian businesses to explore mutually beneficial opportunities. Talking about India, its overall growth of 6.5% plus GDP is fueled by the strong performance in manufacturing sector, service sector, streamlined labor regulations, and robust domestic consumption, solidifying India's position as one of the world's fastest expanding and fifth largest economy. Even with India recalibrating towards manufacturing, service sector will maintain a strong role in the economy. India is keeping a sharp focus on both sectors as each has opportunities in domestic and export market. In manufacturing, new growth avenues are emerging from an accelerating global trend towards supply chain diversification. The government's production linked initiatives, schemes, and improving physical infrastructure. Service sector will be driven by domestic demand as well as the global outsourcing. The current account deficit is projected to decline to 2.2% for of GDP in FY23 and 1.9% in FY24. India has improved its ranking in the World Bank's Logistic Performance Index by 6 places, owing to significant investment in both soft and hard infrastructure as well as technology. In 2023, India's ranking for international shipment improved significantly, moving from 44 position in 2018 to 22 in 2022. India also climbed 4 places to rank 48 in the logistic competence and equality. Talking about India and Korea, President Yoon Suk Yeol gave the framework of the cooperation of Indo-Pacific Economic Forum last year, and I had the opportunity to be a speaker on 13 July at Busan during the negotiation and finalization of the guidelines of the IPEF framework. It amply demonstrates that India and Korea are coming together on a number of platforms: supply chain diversification, clean economy, fair economy, give ample opportunities to Korean MSCs to diversify their business to India. Through this webinar, our esteemed speaker, Mr. Mark Kennedy, will give you insight about the business opportunities and highlight about various policies and incentives available for Korean and international companies for doing or expanding their businesses in India. I am very much thankful to Mr. Mark and Mr. Nishikant Singh to join this webinar along with the participant companies and make it a success. And I look forward to listening from them. Thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.
Kamsahamnida. Terrific. Also, as we wait for Mr. Singh to become available, I also just wanted to re-emphasize a couple of points about why today is an important event. This webinar is designed to help you understand what the market opportunity is in India right now and what India has to offer. Mr. Sinha already alluded to a couple of things that we'll be covering in greater detail in just a minute, but the overwhelming message is from the central government on through all different levels. India is open for business and they are ready now. Plus, the market environment is so conducive to a bright future that if there was any time to invest, it would be now. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a full investment. It can simply be getting started by learning more about your specific market niche, doing some basic research about the opportunity, and then figuring out the best way to try to enter the market. You can get started simply by dipping your toe in the water by finding a distribution channel partner, for example, or you can go full into the market with your own entity, and we're available to help you do either of those things. It's also important, and I'm sure we're going to hear from Mr. Singh in just a second, about how there's a very strong government relationship and diplomatic tie between your two countries, between India and South Korea. And this is only getting stronger as we go forward, especially since now is the 50th anniversary of the beginning of formal diplomatic relations. Finally, at the end, we're going to tell you a little bit more about next time and how we might be able to help you. So I am wondering if Mr. Singh is available now. He's got a very tight schedule today. If not, we will start briefly and then swing back to him in just a second. Mr. Singh, if you're there. Okay, no problem. We will be flexible. Actually, one thing that we want to do is query all of you, ask you a couple of questions during this presentation, because we're all about audience participation here. Now, as you probably noticed in the slide deck, we've done everything in both English and in Korean. The first question that we'd like you to respond to via Zoom is, how soon is your organization planning to establish a presence in South Korea? Is it right away, within the next year or so, year to 2 years, a little bit after that, or no formal plans, which is absolutely okay. If you wouldn't mind, please use the functionality on your screen right now to go ahead and vote. Oh, good. We're starting to get some responses. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. So it looks like at this point, about 1/3 of the respondents so far already are present in India, which is great. Maybe there are plans to expand further. However, there's also a very large cohort of the responses, almost 43% at this point, that have plans to enter the market of India within the next 12 months. That's wonderful. A few of you still don't have any formal plans. That's not a problem at all. We are here to enlighten you on the opportunities that exist. Wonderful. Okay, well, I will briefly turn off the voting, but thanks for the feedback. As we wait for Mr. Singh, another thing to keep in mind are some basics about India. Now, I am also learning about doing business in India, and one of the first things that my colleagues in India have told me is, Mark, you need to learn the ABCs of India, and the A in ABC stands for Almighty, religion. B is, of course, Bollywood, and C is cricket. Now, as anyone who visits India will tell you, India is an extremely religious and spiritual land with a very high reverence for the divine and several deities. Now, when we're talking about deities, there are a lot of them, but some are more important than others. I am still learning about this, but the important takeaway is that religion is extremely important to people in India. Bollywood has almost a cult-like following, and actually its actors possess almost godly levels of following. And cricket is also the most widely used medium for promotion activities and has drawn several startups and new companies as sponsors. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The bottom line is, when doing business in India, be aware of the ABCs. So Almighty, Bollywood, and cricket. One more important person that we need to hear from now is Mr. Singh. So I'm going to back up and transfer the mic over to Mr. Singh, who has joined us in the midst of a lot of activities right now. So thank you, Mr. Singh. We have introduced you. The mic is yours.
I hope I'm audible.
You are.
Thank you. Thank you. So can you zoom in? Who will do this? So a very good afternoon to Mr. Sinha, Mr. Mark. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to share my views on this lovely seminar which has been organized today. So I would keep myself very restricted to the perspective from the government. So to my audience here, I would like to share some views about the prospects which are available in India. As you know, at this point of time, where there are concerns about growth in the global economy, India is growing and is expected to grow in the range of 5 to 7% in the upcoming decade. And with a population of over 1.4 billion, which offers a sizable domestic market, with young and energetic workforce, expanding middle class, and rising consumer purchasing power. If we combine all this, there is a lot of opportunity for our fellow businesses from Korea to come and invest in India, to do business in India. So you can understand given the size of our population, it's a well-consuming nation with a population of 1.4 billion and with 800 million internet users in the country. There are a lot of initiatives which government has introduced, the government of India has introduced. The list is very long, so I will not go into the long list. I'll just indicate a couple of them, like Make in India initiative, production linked initiative, incentives, which we call as PLI scheme. And these PLI schemes have been put in to attract investors in the select areas and sectors of our interest. A couple of them I'm sharing, the list is long, like automobile, textile, steel, food, electronics, hardware, specialty chemicals. So in these sectors, the government has come with an initiative which we call as production linked incentive. And in India, as you know, India right now, the digital transformation in India is happening at an unprecedented scale. All of you who had a chance to visit India, if today you go and take a walk in any street of India, even in a narrowest street, deep down in the city, you go and just go to even like a street side vendor, and you take a cup of tea or coffee or any eatable from that person. The payment, you don't need to do any cash payment. The payment is a digital payment. As a QR-based payment, which is going on in India, and the volume of these transactions are increasing at an unprecedented level with every passing day. So for instance, in India, we have come up with a concept of digital public infrastructure. So digital public infrastructure, it has a concept of India stack, meaning to say many of these applications which have been made, which is making all these possibles in India, they all are open source based, and their source code has been made available for other countries and the other stakeholders who would like to take a look on that, would like to improvise it as per their local requirement. So the idea of growth in India is to share the concept of growth with all our friends across. So while we say the robust corporate earning growth in India as of now, so if you look at the Indian economy, it's growing. And by 2027, we are expecting to be the third largest economy in the world. And with the growing population, that's a huge market. So this is one side where we are talking about the growth side, the market base, the government, any incentives for the foreign investors and businesses to come and do business in India. Just few data I'll suggest on the FDI. I would like to share on the FDI. The foreign direct investment, this has grown at a very unprecedented level in India. For example, just a very rough comparison. In 2003, 2004, the FDI in India was around $4 billion, while in 2021, 2022, it reached $85 billion. So in a decade of like 18, 20 years, 2 decades, you can see the scale of growth of FDI in India. That shows the confidence of foreign investors in the growth of India, the prospects which are available in India. I won't like to divulge much into it because here with me, the industry specialists are there from ICCK. Mr. Anil Sinha is there. Mr. Mark is there. They would be in a position to give you more exact details, being an industry specialist, being from the government side. I'm just touching on the broad contours. Now, there's one more contour in India, which I would like to touch here, given the opportunity, the startup story growth in India, the unicorns. So in India, if we go, there has been a rapid growth in the number of unicorns. So, you know, the unicorns are those startups which have reached a valuation of $1 billion US. So in year 2021, 44 So like 44 startups in India, they grow to become a unicorn. That's 44 in the year 2021, 21 in 2022. And as of now, when I'm speaking, in India, we have 107 Indian unicorns as on date. So there is a scope for collaboration with the innovation ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, the digital transformation ecosystem between both sides, between the businesses on both sides. So we should try to take an advantage of that. Now there are other electronics sector. So the government has come with the semiconductor initiative, and you must have read about a lot of discussions happening around the semiconductor. I don't want to divulge much on that. Just I want to say that India has a very strong capability in semiconductor design with an estimated workforce of 24,000 design engineers working in India. I had a word with some of the South Korean companies who are into the semiconductor space. So I just got a reference that they have an R&D centers in India. So we do have a workforce, a talent pool, a workforce in India, which can help in integrating this new supply chain system. So I think so. I won't take much time here. I would rather like to summarize my a brief intro here. So to all the partners here, to all the businesses from South Korea, we as an embassy, we look forward for your participation in India's growth story, participation in Indian business ecosystem, your investment in India. So do count us as a friend. As an embassy, we are always there to assist you, help you. Please feel free to reach out to us. We would be very glad to see you, support you in whatever way we can. And we also have a very beautiful ecosystem of ICCK, which is an Indian Chamber of Commerce in Korea, which has organized this event today. So you please reach out to them for any help which you need. So as an embassy, we will be very glad to help you, to assist you, to provide you any information, any linkages which you would look forward. So thank you, Mark. That's from my side.
Terrific, Mr. Singh. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We know you have a very busy schedule at the moment. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go back to beyond the ABCs and get into the nuts and bolts, the details behind the opportunity.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark. With the permission of all of you, can I have a permission to leave because I have another engagement?
Yes, of course, no problem. And we will follow up with you later. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Nishikant. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone. Thank you.
All right. Now let's get into the meat of the presentation to give a little bit more detail behind some of the facts and figures that both of our guest speakers alluded to so far. There are lots of factors that are making the Indian market extremely dynamic and very attractive for international businesses. Various factors contribute to India's journey of becoming a favorable business destination, and we will look at some of the key factors and growth drivers that make India one of the foremost destinations for overseas investment. Numerous factors are contributing to India's journey of becoming an attractive business destination. As an example, liberalization of the Indian regulatory framework has enhanced India's attractiveness as a potential destination for foreign investors. These reforms have made it much easier for companies to do business in India. Both of our guest speakers mentioned the same fact. In addition, reforms from several state governments have complemented central initiatives and allowed for sustainable growth. While FDI globally fell actually last year by 1%, in India, the situation is totally the opposite. It grew by 18% in 2022. As the figures on the left demonstrate, it's just impossible not to be impressed by the sheer size of the opportunity in India. It firmly stands right now as the 5th largest and one of the fastest growing economies worldwide. Probably, as we just heard from Mr. Singh, India will be the 3rd largest economy in the world as soon as 2030. The urban population is driving this growth, and it's because of this that opportunities are increasing throughout the whole country. It is estimated that half of all Indians will be living in cities and towns by the year 2050. They are driven by this population growth, expansion of cities, and migration of people from rural areas for better employment opportunities and economic prospects. Urbanization demands all sorts of smart technology initiatives to drive this market growth. That gives you many of opportunities. India is now the 5th largest FDI recipient globally, and it is expected to attract more than double the investments over the next 5 years. South Korean companies, mainly the large ones, have already showed the same faith in India, as they have identified India as a crucial market for expansion. Here are a couple of examples. Hyundai Motors. It is actually already the 2nd largest car manufacturer and one of the leading car exporters in India. Hyundai Motors India produces 700,000 cars annually in India and exports more than 150,000 cars to 87 countries, certainly giving Mr. Sinha a little competition. In its commitment to provide customers with cutting-edge technology, Hyundai has a modern multi-million-dollar R&D facility in Hyderabad. Another example, POSCO. POSCO has set up a cold-rolled galvanized and electrical steel production plant in Maharashtra in the middle of the country and has an investment there of over $1 billion US. They operate steel processing centers also in Pune, Delhi, Chennai, and Hyderabad. Samsung India is the regional headquarters for Samsung's operations throughout Southwest Asia. The company has invested about $1.1 billion in India, and it operates 2 manufacturing locations in Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, 5 R&D centers, and 1 design center in the country. Presently, Indian employees account for 7% of Samsung's global workforce. Another automotive manufacturer, Kia Motors, is also a leading force in Korea. The company is in the process of setting up its manufacturing facility in Andhra Pradesh with an annual capacity of 300,000 cars and an investment of $1.1 billion US. LG operates 2 factories in Noida and also in Pune. The manufacturing unit in Noida is actually one of the best eco-friendly units among all LG manufacturing facilities around the world. They have 40,000 outlets across the country, including 2,000 standalone stores. Now, the success stories here are not just in cars, steel, and electronics. Another great example is a recent example, is a company called Orion. This is the famous Orion of Choco Pie. Well, they just started business in India, and it's a great example of how Korean brands are becoming very popular in the country. This company entered India just before the pandemic, which at first thought would give you pause. However, they grew 700% in 2021 over 2020, and their venture into India into the $40 billion direct-to-consumer space for food processing is just continuing to be extremely beneficial. They invested about $25 million US a few years ago, and now next year they're actually planning to add another 1,000 associates. So big success story in a market segment that you traditionally might not associate with South Korean companies. Another firm, Mirai Asset, has increased its total funding value in India to $383 million as of June 2023. This is reflecting its headquarters' belief of the enormous growth opportunity in the Indian market. Also, Lotte Confectionery. Seizing India's huge growth potential, Lotte Well Food has 5 production facilities in India now, and presently their sales from India accounts for actually 1/3 of overall global business. The domestic consumption is traditionally one of the key drivers of India's growth economy. Simply put, if consumers spend more, businesses have more capital to invest, and increased liquidity throughout the system energizes complementary sectors for higher-end goods and services. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the facts and figures. To understand the potential of the Indian consumer market, let's look at the growth drivers and market forecasts that are in store for India today. Equally important is that India's stable financial, judicial, and political environment provides comfort so that businesses can count on scalability and growth. India's consumer market drives 3/5 of its GDP, and the economy has historically relied heavily on spending by middle-class consumers. The share of the middle class with an annual household income of between the United States $6,000 and $36,000 has more than doubled in the past 15 years and is expected to rise to 63% by the year 2047. India is the 6th largest consumer market worldwide and is expected to be the 3rd largest by the year 2025, only 2 years from now. Owing to the current economic and political trend of reforms, it is expected that by 2030, there will be a thick chunk of the population in the middle class category, which shall in turn raise consumer spending from about $1.5 trillion today to $6 trillion by the year 2030. That means that it is estimated to surpass the United States to become the world's 2nd largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity by the year 2040. Now, these are very impressive statistics, but there is more. The present consumer market contributes about 60% of the GDP, and it's valued at about $1.7 billion. India is presently the 2nd largest internet market in the world, with between 750 and 800 million active internet users, as Mr. Singh mentioned. This is growing to an estimated 1.5 billion users by 2040. This only adds to the rapid growth of the e-commerce market of India, which is expected to reach about $350 billion of value by 2030, primarily driven by India's population, which is the youngest across the globe, not only the largest, but the youngest with an average age of only 28 years old. India is the 4th largest preferred retail destination globally. It is projected to reach approximately $2 trillion by the year 2032 from a current level of about $690 billion. Within the next decade, almost all business segments in India's consumer market are going to witness unprecedented growth. If there's any time to invest in India, it really is now. Taking a little more detailed look at the fast-moving consumer goods or FMCG market in India, that's expected to grow at a CAGR of about 15% to reach 220 billion from the base of 110 billion right now. That's only by the year 2025. India is also the 3rd largest food and grocery market in the world. Food and grocery are the largest segment of the retail sector, having an opportunity worth 570 billion and responsible for about 66% of the country's total retail spend. Also, you've heard a lot about the electric vehicle or EV market. It is expected to grow from a base of about $1.45 billion in 2021 to reach $3.21 billion this year, and then grow to over $113 billion by the year 2029. That's a CAGR of almost 70%. Also, digital healthcare is very important. This subset of the market was worth about $1.4 billion in 2018, but is expected to reach $5.9 billion of value in 2024, and a CAGR of about 30%. India is also the 2nd largest world's market for mobile telephones and manufacturing, and it's the 2nd largest market in Asia Pacific for this. The domestic electronic devices market in India is set to reach $300 billion in a couple of years. In the electronic devices industry, which is currently valued at about $118 billion, is comprised primarily of mobile phones at about a quarter of the market, consumer electronics at 22%, strategic electronics, computer hardware, and then LEDs, and then industrial electronics, which account for about a third of the market, mainly supporting the automotive, medical, and other industrial segments. So the bottom line is that there are huge opportunities, but just looking at the numbers of India. But what is really behind all of this? Well, actually, Mr. Singh alluded to this just a minute ago. It comes down to very supportive government incentives at many different levels. While we can all agree that there are definite opportunities available with India as a destination, financial considerations in the initial stage of investment are critical for every investor. To encourage businesses to enter India, the government has introduced several financing incentives, which are listed here, and there are more. As many of you are aware, India follows a federal structure of governance, and because of this, the incentive structure for businesses is actually twofold, two different layers. One layer is offered by the central government, but then certain states give more broad-based incentives for businesses to set up within their own state. In addition to the 15% corporate tax rate, which is already pretty low, there are tax exemptions available in certain sectors for up to 15 years. There are production-linked incentive schemes for up to 40% of initial capital investment. There are other subsidies for CapEx. There's the relaxation of import duties as well as export incentives. There are all sorts of opportunities. And several states are also working toward new incentives to promote investments in their particular region. For example, Maharashtra has introduced schemes that reduce registration timelines for implementing zero permissions for major registrations from authorities through a single form within 30 days. So it's not just financial incentives, but it's time, which of course means money. And these incentives can significantly ease the initial settling down phase for any new investment. So now let's look at the overall long-term forecast. It is interesting to mention here that within only a few years, India is going to become one of the 4 top economies globally, and by 2047, it will firmly become the world's second largest economy. Not only does India aim to achieve this milestone by leveraging its demographic dividend, fostering innovation, and implementing robust economic policies, but it is also significant to mention that by 2047, India's nominal GDP shall be about 30 trillion US dollars, and that means that every 1 minute between now and then, $9 is added. The per capita GDP will be about US $30,000 by that point, which just provides a tremendous number of opportunities. Continuing investments in education and skill development also harness the potential of India's young workforce, complemented with advancements in technology and research, all aimed at fueling economic growth across sectors. Furthermore, collaborations with global partners, trade expansion, and infrastructure development will play pivotal roles in shaping India's economic trajectory. So India is well on track to becoming the world's second largest economy by the year 2047. Now let's take a quick look at the story between India and South Korea. The Republic of Korea and India have just recently commemorated 50 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries, and they are moving well beyond the normative approach toward a robust bilateral relationship. We have together made great strides in recent years, and the relations have become truly multidimensional, spurred by a significant convergence of interests and mutual goodwill. The bilateral cooperation covers a range of sectors, including energy, electronics, shipbuilding, and information technology. Both countries have committed to further strengthening the India-South Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or CEPA agreement. This bilateral trade is now at an all-time high of $28 billion, and both nations have agreed to take concrete steps to realize the vision of taking it up, basically doubling it to $50 billion as soon as 2030. Korea is the 13th largest FDI contributor in India, and it has an investment in the country of about $5.4 billion, and that was only between 2020 and March 2023. Now there are more than 500 Korean companies doing business in India, and bilateral trade is definitely on track to grow to 23.7 billion in 2021, and then ultimately, as I mentioned, 50 billion by 2030. So it is time now for you to participate once again, and I hope you're still there because I have an important question for you. What is it that is making India so attractive for you? Why are you participating in this seminar? Why are you interested in India? Please feel free to vote for more than one option. Is it to diversify your supply chain? Is it to penetrate a new market, a new growing market with a huge middle class? Is it to access India's tremendous human potential for talent? Or is it just to become more cost competitive? There are many options. Oh, thank you for your votes. Interesting. Okay, so I see that there's a strong interest in penetrating a new market, which is wonderful. Also, being cost competitive. Very good. And also accessing talent. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Oh, okay, even more votes. Great. Definitely the number one is market penetration for as a new opportunity, but also talent pool and cost competitiveness. Wonderful. Thank you for voting. Okay, all of this sounds pretty good. And I'm sure by now you're interested. There we go. We can see it on the screen. I'm sure by now you are interested to learn a little bit more about now specifically what it can do. We want to just pause for a second and say, look, this is not an infomercial just for the opportunities in India. We need to make sure that you fully understand that there is still room to improve here. And we want to be brutally honest with you because over the years, there has been kind of a gap between perception and reality in terms of just how easy it is or how difficult or challenging it can be to do business in Korea. So we'd like to address the most common perceptions and misperceptions about the country and set you straight. Beginning with, is it really easy to do business in Korea? Well, the answer to that question, honestly, is yes and no. Okay, it is much better than it used to be, but there are still challenges. Over the past decade in particular, though, there have been tremendous developments in terms of infrastructure, tax reforms, power, basic electricity, regulatory environment, skilled employment, and overall that has resulted, as Mr. Singh also mentioned, that the ease of doing business index has improved quite a bit for India, from a pretty low rating of only 142 now up to 63. Now, a score of 63 means that there are 62 places ahead of you, which begs the question, what more can be done? Well, the central government, as evidenced by Mr. Singh, is fully behind efforts to improve ratings in terms of doing business in India, making it easier to do business. But there is still room for improvement. The bottom line is that the directional viewpoint for India is heading in the right direction. So now is a good time to do business in India. Let's move on to another common perception or misperception, and that is it big enough? Is the market big enough? So there's a belief, or had been a belief for years, that the market of Korea is just too small to be worth the effort and worth the investment. But is that true anymore? I would challenge that perception or misperception. Like we've just covered, there's a huge opportunity right now, and that's because the middle class is what's driving the economy of India. It is the engine of growth. And presently, the size of the middle class is already enormous. It's 400 million people. And the number is expected to double by the year 2047, which will bring the per capita income up 6 times from the current levels. Now, to reiterate, that means that the present consumer market size is about 1.5 trillion US dollars. That is to grow to $6 trillion by 2030. Thus, the bottom line is that the numbers speak for themselves. The consumer market is already large, and it is expected to grow much bigger. That gives a very attractive environment for you to operate in. Now, another common misperception, which has been changing recently, is, well, about the ease of doing business, what about logistics? Literally just getting products from point A to point B. Is it really possible? Well, it is true that in the past this was challenging, but The government of India at all different levels has really been making a concerted effort to improve this situation. It is felt that I'd like to state here that while the notion that India is emerging as a manufacturing hub is stabilizing in general viewpoints around the world, the government has always felt the need to improve the logistics cost for improving the competitiveness of Indian goods, both in the domestic as well as the export market. Reducing logistics costs improves efficiency by cutting across various sectors of the economy, encouraging value addition, and therefore the government has made this a comprehensive effort to address issues of high cost and inefficiency. They have laid down an overarching interdisciplinary, cross-sectional, and multi-jurisdictional framework for the development of the entire logistics ecosystem. That's a mouthful, but they mean they're putting their money where their words are. Therefore, the government has introduced the National Logistics Policy to reduce costs, integrate digital investments, as we just heard Mr. Singh talk about, develop logistics parks, standardize physical assets, and benchmark service quality standards. So it is now actually very efficient to get goods from point A to point B across the country in India. Okay. The skeptics will continue, but what about ongoing problems with bureaucracy and taxes? Isn't that a challenge? Well, it had been a challenge, but once again, the government has stepped up and really improved things. It had been common knowledge that the tax structure of India had been complicated and it was relatively difficult to make and repatriate profits earned in India. The Indian government has, however, been continually working on easing tax payments and introducing structural tax reforms from time to time, the most famous of which recently was the introduction of the General Sales Tax, or GST, in 2017. They are also helping to reduce corporate tax rates, easing litigation through faceless assessments, and allowing international companies to repatriate profits through tax treaties. So things are getting much more streamlined, much more efficient. Okay, you're probably saying at this point, okay, I get it. From a numbers, dollars and cents point of view, also listening about all these government reforms, it sounds like now is a good time to do business in India. But one other lingering misperception, or perception at least, is that isn't it difficult to communicate with people from India? Well, I would say the answer is no. And the reason lies with one thing: English language. As long as you can communicate in English, by and large, you can communicate with a vast number of business people in India. Now, over the past 75 years since the independence of India, the government has really made it a priority to increase the literacy rate. It is still, as you saw in the video at the beginning, at 75%. But that makes it the second largest English-speaking country after the United States, and the number of English speakers is expected to quadruple by the year 2032. The Republic of Korea and India also continue to share very strong ties, and the warmth between the two nations is evident by the fact that there are actually about 17,000 Korean nationals living and working in India right now, and there are about 7,000 Indians residing in Korea. Now, curiously, here's another interesting tidbit. There are something like 500 words in the state language Tamil and Korean that have the same pronunciation, so that might help. But besides Tamil, the bottom line is that proficiency in English is what's driving good communications between Indians and the rest of the world. All right, hopefully we've caught your interest and attention, and now you're interested to do something about investing in India. How can we help you? We want to take a few minutes to introduce Next Time and tell you a little bit about what we do. Our goal is to help to facilitate international expansion into India. We are an award-winning, employee-owned firm. We are a business advisory organization that has been supporting foreign direct investment projects in India actually since the late 1990s. And we understand this space very well and continue to assist international businesses around the world. Now, I am your conduit to Next Time, covering both markets of Japan and South Korea. We work on all sorts of different projects. Like we talked about at the very beginning, You just want to learn a little bit more about the market. You're not quite ready to invest. Maybe you want to dip your toe in the water with a distribution channel partner or a joint venture partner. That's fine. We can help you find that partner. We specialize in all sorts of different industries. We are industry agnostic, as they say in India. That said, historically, we have had a very strong presence in medical devices and healthcare in general. Also, industrial manufacturing, electronics, automobiles, banking, private equity, pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, and food processing, and also the aviation business. We have over almost 2,000 associates, and we have clients from around 1,200 companies from around the world in all sorts of different industries. But it just does happen that we are really kind of focused in healthcare and food processing. Also, we have won many awards. We were the Advisory Project of the Year in 2017 for helping an Israeli manufacturer of non-woven materials get set up in India. That actually involved quite a bit of negotiations, first identifying, but then in negotiating for those government incentives that we talked about a minute ago. Plus, we basically handle the entire project setup for that organization. And we still, to this day, have very strong relations with them and hire and help them with their back office functions. A little bit more specifically as to what we can do. This is the list in English, and we have a new brochure in Korean, which we can share with you afterwards. There are actually more services than are listed on here, but to break it down into two simple categories, on the left side, you can see some of the services that we do for companies that are just interested to access the market. On the right side, that's more business support function, essentially business process outsourcing, that we can use our resources to help you manage your business in South Korea. So once you get up in business and up and running, you can focus on what you do best, which is sales and marketing probably, or manufacturing, and let the back office functions be handled by us. But focusing today on the left side, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, we're all focused about what it is that you would want to do in order to learn more about the market. Maybe this involves doing a simple market research project to identify the market opportunity in your specific segment or niche. And we can get very detailed on that, and our focus is really on B2B opportunities. What if you decide to find a partner, a distribution channel partner? Well, we have a pretty intensive process for finding and also vetting, making sure, assessing that the partner is appropriate and is financially viable. We can handhold you through that entire process. If you do plan to make an investment, we can walk you through every step of the way, essentially, to establish that investment. If it involves a greenfield business or brownfield business, we can do all the project management. Our core is, of course, tax and assurance, and that is still a very strong area. We can, of course, audit your businesses and so forth. And we can do this not only for your businesses in India, but actually on a global basis. For example, our global transfer pricing function has been recognized globally as a really strong part of our business. So we can certainly go into more detail, but specifically a little bit more detail about our credentials. We have helped actually over 500 companies get established in India over the past several years. And this is to provide true end-to-end service, as I just talked about. We can help you find a location, procure the land, attain all viable licenses, get approvals, identify and realize incentives, which could be worth a lot and reduce your capital expenditure, and much more. We are a multidisciplinary global organization having over 6 decades of experience of servicing small to large firms, including many Fortune 500 companies. And we have all sorts of clients from all over the world, over 50 different countries. Now, we are not only about large firms, though, we also help small to medium-sized enterprises as well. And specifically as that relates to Korea, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put the Korean words on there. Sorry, I'll let you take that in for a second. So on a global basis, we have quite a bit of experience. We also routinely do market research projects. And as I specifically mentioned a second ago, this can be on a very detailed subject that you won't find on an off-the-shelf market research project. Now, specifically as it relates to Korea, and Korean companies. Over the years, we have serviced many Korean companies with market research, partner search, and entry strategy, setting up their entities in India. And we carry extensive experience in business matchmaking services to help Korean companies navigate the Indian business landscape and design an effective strategy for their entry plans. We serve across sectors, including not only your very strong automobile and electronics equipment and instrument markets, but all sorts of other markets such as diversified financial services, healthcare equipment and services, household durables, software and services. Plus, as we talked about, food processing is another really strong area. We support our clients in varied capacities, including entity setup and management, and also business advisory assurance and risk advisory, direct tax and regulatory, indirect tax compliance, and international global tax transfer pricing. So now you might be thinking, okay, that's a lot. I am still at the very early stages here, so that's okay. We have one more way of looking at it, and that's this chart. We've tried to divide this by time frame, essentially, with entry strategy on the left side, whereas ongoing support would be on the right side. Next time can be your partner at any step in the process or for every step in the process. So let's say on the left side, you just want to know about the market opportunity that exists. Well, we can help you identify what the market opportunity is. And as I mentioned a second ago, if you're looking for a distribution channel partner, for example, just to dip your toes in the water, we can help you find and assess and help you interview those partners, candidates. We've done many projects like this recently. If, on the other hand, you want to invest fully with a joint venture partner or on your own, we can help you with both of those prospects as well. If you do want to invest on your own or with a joint venture partner, as I mentioned before, we can help you set up at every step of the way in the middle section. And plus, after you get up and running, then you can outsource your finance and accounting functions, as an example, and of course, tax auditing to us. That means that you don't have to worry about things like collecting money. We can let us take that on, and you can focus on sales, marketing, or manufacturing of your products. So I know that's a mouthful. That's a lot. We have covered a lot of ground in a limited period. We would like to open this up for questions at this point, and actually we've already gotten a couple of questions, which I would like to read in just a second. Okay, if you have more, please feel free to fill out the Q&A section at the top here or in the chat box, but I'll read the first question that we've got. Currently, Korea's economy is very dependent upon China, but due to recent political and economic problems, it can no longer rely solely on China. Korean companies are looking for new markets. India, perhaps the world's largest population and economic potential, must be a really attractive market. However, the fact that most Korean companies don't know much about India, it seems that could be an obstacle to doing business. And I'm wondering if Next Time is aware of this and what kind of advice you can give to those Korean companies. That comes from Mr. Harry Kim from the Kita. Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. We appreciate that question. Well, as I mentioned a second ago, you're absolutely right. Korea is probably highly dependent upon investments in China right now. Same situation that we see here in Japan. And now many Korean and Japanese companies are rethinking that approach and therefore are interested in diversifying. Not completely moving away from China, but it's the general China plus one strategy. So diversifying efforts. I mean, Apple Computer, there's another famous example of a company from the United States that has actively been diversifying away from China and into India right now. The bottom line is, yes, not too much is known about the Indian market potential by smaller to medium-sized enterprises in South Korea. That is our goal. At Next Time, we're aware of that fact. That is the purpose of today's webinar. And we are not just going to do this once. We will continually offer this program again and again, and perhaps focusing on a little bit more specific market segments. Also, for any company that is curious to know more about Korea and the specific market opportunity for them, we can meet with them and do a little market research to help them figure out more opportunities. So I see there's one more question. Large Korean companies are getting into the Indian market by establishing branches directly in India, but small companies are struggling to get a direct entity set up, whether it's a greenfield or brownfield investment. True. There are also companies that hesitate to invest directly in the India market due to the opacity of the Indian market. There's the perception issue again. For those companies, would you be able to introduce local Indian companies and help them to build business relationships through dealerships at minimal cost? Yes, is the answer to that. Well, as you saw, there are already 500 Korean companies already established in South Korea. But as you noticed from the list of success stories at the beginning, most of these are pretty large enterprises. However, smaller to medium-sized firms have been making some smaller investments and investing in their own legal entity. So it is possible. And the government of India is very much pro-business and willing to help small to medium-sized enterprises. And there are all sorts of government incentives that are not only available to the giant companies. That said, we completely understand that many investors are simply looking to learn a little bit more about the market by experimenting with one or two or more distribution channel partners in the country. That is absolutely fine. That is actually what we at Next Time focus on. So what we can do is find out from you about your market, the specific criteria that you have for finding an ideal channel distribution partner, and then we can go and find some candidates for you and help you assess whether they truly be good partners. So, Mr. Kim, thank you for those two great questions. These are perfect, and they sum up probably what a lot of small to medium-sized enterprises believe at the moment.
Mark, if you agree, can I add to your answer for Mr. Harris Kim and the participants here?
Please.
Just to give you a glimpse about India, most of the Indian states and the central government has digitized the setting up the manufacturing industry or any kind of company in India. Like in the state of Uttar Pradesh, the complete approval process has been digitized and it is called Nivesh Mitra, means investment friend. So if you have to invest in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which is a large state with a population of 240 million, as big as Brazil population, so you apply online and then you get a response. And if you are lacking anything in terms of documentation, they will revert back to you. And all these states for investment and the business opportunity are being governed by the chief minister themselves on a monthly basis. So if anything is there, if anything is pending, lacking from the Indian state government or Indian central government, it gets escalated by end of the month. So there are lots of digitization which has taken place, and our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has given a target to 5 states like Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka to become 1 trillion economy by 2030. So these 5 states and all the other states also have got very investor friendly policies, and it is being reviewed at a government level in a very, very transparent manner. And India has also become a signatory of what I explained to you, IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. In that, one of the pillar is the clean economy. Means corruption and all those things are things of the past, and things are very transparent. Government policies are very transparent. It is digitized. Mr. Nishikant Singh as well as Mark explained about production linked initiative. So if you are able to achieve that kind of a production volume and you are able to do the shipment, government will give you the incentive on its own. All these are digitized. You don't have to do the follow up. So these business policies have come out in last 5 to 10 years time, and lots of ease of doing business is there.
That is
And
terrific
also,
information.
yeah, and also just to share, like in Indian Chamber of Commerce, Next Time is a member company, and besides next time we have other companies like law firm from India side, law firm from Korea side like BKL, Yulchun. These big Korean law firms are our member companies. So if you want to plan to invest in India, similarly big law firms are our member companies in India. So if you want to establish your business in India, invest in India, our member company next time and others will facilitate your business. You are in safe hand and there is a full transparency.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. I couldn't have said it better. That's absolutely right. We actually also got another question from before the seminar started about what facilities can the Indian government provide to Koreans to set up their industry business. I think we've answered that question, but just to add a little bit more detail, Next Time has recently prepared state-specific information about the various incentives that are offered in each state. So I can share that with any of you afterwards. Okay, I think we have in the chat perhaps a couple of more questions. I'm sorry, just noticed. Can you slow the pace of speaking? Sorry, I guess we're now finished, but next time we'll take that under consideration. And of course, I need to learn some Hangul. But in any case, I think we're out of time for today. And Mr. Sinha, if you'd like to add any more comments at the end, that would be great.
Yeah, so thank you very much, all the participants for joining it. And I hope this webinar has been useful to you. And anyway, you can get in touch with Indian Chamber of Commerce. We have our offices in Invest Korea building in Seoul on 4th floor. You can contact them and we can introduce you to our member companies in Korea and India. And as a practice, we also take business delegation of a specific industry to India, Korean industry, a specific delegation to India, and we also entertain and support Indian delegations which are coming to Korea. Like in the first week, we had Maharashtra State Industry Minister himself coming up, along with his all his direct reports in terms of industry minister, industry secretary, principal secretary, and all of them to have a one-to-one dialogue with the Korean industry and support them into establishing their business and explain the policies. So if you have any doubt, if you have any question, you can get in touch with us and we can introduce you to our member companies or the business query which we keep on getting from India. So thank you very much once again for joining our webinar, and I hope to continue this interaction and relationship with you. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Sinha. We really appreciate your comments and support. And also, before we go, I would also like to just extend our thanks once again to Mr. Singh, who had to go to a different meeting halfway through, but also one more person, a very good friend who works at the Korea International Trade Association, or KITA, who helped to put this presentation together in Korean. Could not have done that without you, so thank you very much. One final thing, I will be in Seoul next week. And if you want to learn more about specific opportunities and how Next Time might be able to help you, I am available at any point during the day on Thursday and Friday at this point. So please give me a shout or an email and we can set up a time to meet. And of course, it doesn't have to be in person. I am available at any point to talk by the telephone or video conference. So Next Time is absolutely looking forward to working with you as you investigate opportunities in the Indian market. And we're also looking forward to being a long-term participant in Mr. Sinha's organization, the Indian Chamber of Commerce in South Korea. So thank you again for your time, and we will look forward to seeing you with our next event. Goodbye. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.